What's the worst way your parents tried to control you? When people ask me about controlling parents, they usually expect curfews, no dating rules, maybe the classic be home before the streetlights come on. But my parents, they tracked every single move I made, literally, and I don't mean in a protective, we love you kind of way. I mean in the suffocating, no escape, you belong to us kind of way. At 16, I should have been figuring out who I was. Friends, school, maybe a first job, first crush. Instead, my life felt like a prison sentence. On the outside, we looked perfect. Picture a smiling family at Sunday church, my mom baking pies for neighborhood gatherings, my dad shaking hands at PTA meetings like he was running for office. But behind closed doors, it was constant surveillance. My phone wasn't really mine. They checked it every night. They read my texts, scrolled through my DMs, even checked the search history. If I deleted anything, they'd call me a liar. If I left something suspicious, I'd be interrogated. Privacy didn't exist. And it wasn't just digital. My room got searched like it was contraband central. If I had candy, I wasn't supposed to eat. Gone. If I wrote in a notebook about feeling angry or sad, it would mysteriously disappear, and then I'd get a lecture at dinner about being ungrateful. The worst part? They acted like it was all for my own good. Like every locked door, every tracked location, every confiscated note was some twisted form of love, and if I dared question it, they'd throw out lines like, "We gave you life, you owe us honesty," or "Only guilty people want privacy." At school, people thought I was just the quiet, shy girl. Teachers praised me for being polite, obedient, never causing trouble. My friends, they'd laugh about sneaking out, going to parties, or skipping class, and I'd laugh too, while knowing my every step was being monitored. There was no sneaking out, there was no room to breathe. It sounds crazy now, but back then I thought it was normal. I thought all parents went through their kids' stuff, tracked their phones, decided who they could hang out with. I didn't realize how deep the control went until the first time I tried to push back, even just a little. One Friday night, I stayed late after school to work on a group project. Totally innocent, right? But when I walked in the door, my mom already knew. "Why were you at the library for an extra 42 minutes?" she demanded. She'd been watching my location the entire time. She pulled up the app on her phone to prove it. My dad shook his head like I'd committed a crime. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, realizing something that chilled me. They didn't see me as a daughter anymore. They saw me as property, and I was about to find out just how far they were willing to go to keep control. The library incident should have been a warning sign, but things didn't just stop there, they escalated. It was like my parents smelled disobedience on me and doubled down. The first time I noticed, it was with my phone. One morning, I woke up and my lock screen had changed. I didn't even think much of it at first. But later, while texting a friend about homework, a weird notification popped up. It wasn't from an app I downloaded, it was from something called Family Safe. I had never installed it. That's when I realized they'd installed monitoring software while I was asleep. Every text, every photo, every app I touched, they could see it in real time. And of course, they didn't tell me. I had to figure it out the hard way. That night, I got a text from a friend joking about a boy in our class, totally innocent. 2 minutes later, my mom storms into my room, waving my phone around, accusing me of being inappropriate. She knew instantly what I'd written. My stomach dropped. They weren't just reading my phone at night anymore. They were watching me live. Then came the clothes. I'd saved up birthday money to buy myself a hoodie. Nothing fancy, just a soft, oversized hoodie that made me feel comfortable. When my mom saw it, she snapped. "That's not modest. You look sloppy. You're not wearing that outside this house." She threw it into a donation bag. I remember staring at that bag and realizing I didn't even own myself. It wasn't just clothes. They started dictating who I could talk to, who I could sit with at lunch, even which clubs I could join. Choir was too worldly. Theater was full of bad influences. Sports, too much time away from home. They picked debate team for me, something I didn't even like, because they thought it would look respectable. I tried to carve out little rebellions, tiny cracks in the walls they built. Late at night, I'd listen to music they called inappropriate. Not even anything wild, just pop songs on a scratched-up MP3 player my friend lent me. But even that got me caught. One night, my mom barged in without knocking, yanked out my earbuds, and called me a disappointment. She made me delete every song in front of her while lecturing me about corruption. But the moment that broke me happened at my cousin's birthday party. I'd brought my journal, my one private thing in the world. It wasn't full of secrets, mostly doodles, little rants, half-written poems, but it was mine. During cake cutting, my mom pulled it out of her purse. She had taken it without me noticing. And then, in front of the entire family, she read a page aloud, a page where I'd written about feeling like a prisoner at home. Everyone laughed awkwardly. My aunt looked uncomfortable. My dad said, "See? Drama queen." And I stood there frozen, cheeks burning, humiliated beyond words. That night, I didn't cry. I went numb. My secret safe place, my words, weren't even safe. And in that numbness, a new thought settled in. If I couldn't trust them with even the smallest parts of me, how could I ever trust them with the big things? I started to notice the pattern. Every time I tried to breathe, they tightened the leash. Every move I made was scrutinized. And the scary part, I realized they were just getting started. Because one night, after dinner, I walked into my room and noticed something strange, something that would change everything. A little blinking red light tucked into the corner, barely visible. At first, I thought it was nothing, but when I got closer, my heart sank. It wasn't nothing. It was a camera. When I saw that tiny blinking light, my stomach twisted like I'd swallowed glass. At first, I tried to convince myself I was wrong. Maybe it was some leftover toy piece, maybe a smoke detector, maybe anything else. But deep down, I knew it was deliberate. I climbed onto my desk, pressed my hand against the corner of the wall, and there it was, a small hidden camera lens, staring back at me. For a second, I couldn't even breathe. A camera. In my bedroom. The one place I thought was mine. I felt stripped, exposed, like every private moment, changing clothes, crying silently into my pillow, whispering thoughts into my journal, had been watched, catalogued, judged. I wanted to scream. Instead, I ran downstairs with my heart hammering and asked, "What is this?" I held the device in my hand like it was poison. My dad didn't flinch. My mom didn't deny it. They just looked at me calmly, almost proud, and said, "It's for your safety." For my safety? I snapped, my voice shaking. "You put a camera in my bedroom. Do you even hear yourselves?" Mom crossed her arms, her voice icy. "Don't be dramatic. We're protecting you from making mistakes. We need to know what's going on when you think we're not watching." That sentence, it cracked something in me. They didn't even hide it. They wanted me to feel trapped, wanted me to know there was no escape. I begged them to take it out, told them it was wrong, but they brushed me off. Dad muttered something like, "One day you'll thank us," and Mom went back to cleaning dishes like I hadn't just caught them spying on their own daughter. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, fully aware of the blinking red light above. Every movement, every shift in the blanket, I imagined being recorded. My skin crawled. Sleep was impossible. The next morning at school, I tried to talk to my counselor. I stammered through the story, telling her how my parents tracked my phone, read my journal, and now this. Her eyes softened, but then she leaned back and said, "Sometimes parents overstep. They just want to protect you. Maybe it's cultural, maybe it's love in their own way." Love. That word felt like acid. I wanted to yell, "Love doesn't feel like a prison," but I didn't. Because once again, an adult didn't believe me. I left her office more invisible than when I entered. That night, things got worse. My little brother, who was only 9 at the time, accidentally mentioned at dinner that Mom rewinds the tape sometimes. My fork clattered to my plate. Tape? That meant this wasn't new. They had been watching me for who knows how long. Rage bubbled inside me. "You're recording me?" I demanded. My dad slammed his hand on the table so hard the glasses rattled. "Lower your voice," he barked. "You live under our roof. You follow our rules." I stared at him across the table, and for the first time I wasn't just hurt. I was furious. They'd stolen my privacy, my freedom, even my right to feel safe in my own skin. That night, I whispered into my pillow, not caring if the camera caught it, "You will not control me forever. I swear I'll find a way out." But inside, I was terrified, because how do you fight people who see every step you make? How do you plan an escape when your jailers are also the people who gave you life? That was the moment I realized. I couldn't just survive this. I had to fight back. After that night, something in me shifted. I wasn't just their obedient daughter anymore. I was a prisoner planning her escape. If they wanted to watch me like a criminal, then fine. I'd play the part of a quiet, broken girl. But behind that mask, I was already plotting. The first step? I needed a way to communicate without them knowing. My best friend Lily had an old cracked iPhone stuffed in a drawer. I begged her for it after school. Swore I'd pay her back somehow. When I slipped it into my backpack, my hands were trembling. That phone felt like freedom, but also like a live grenade. At night, when my parents thought I was asleep, I'd hunch under the covers with that old phone, whispering into it like it was my diary. Screenshots of their invasive texts, pictures of the blinking red light on the camera in my room, even voice recordings when they argued and justified their control. Every detail I saved, building my secret case like a lawyer gathering evidence. But the tension was suffocating. Every time I heard my dad's footsteps in the hall, my heart would leap into my throat. I kept the old phone hidden under a loose floorboard in my closet, wrapped in an old sock. Each night, as I pushed it back into the shadows, I whispered, "Not yet. One day, but not yet." Still, living a double life was exhausting. At dinner, I pretended to laugh at their jokes while knowing my every move was being cataloged upstairs. At school, I smiled while carrying a gnawing fear that someone would discover my secret phone. And then, one night, it happened. I came home from school, dropped my backpack, and froze. My closet door was slightly open. My stomach dropped. When I lifted the board, the sock was there, but the phone was gone. Panic clawed at my throat. Had they found it? My parents were downstairs, acting normal like nothing had happened. My mom hummed as she chopped vegetables. My dad watched TV, but when I looked closer, I saw the edge of a smirk tugging at my mom's lips. That night after dinner, they called me into the living room. On the coffee table sat the cracked iPhone. My dad picked it up between two fingers like it was filth. "Care to explain this?" he asked. My mind raced. Deny it? Pretend it was Lily's? But then my mom leaned in, her voice dripping with triumph. "We already saw what was on it. Do you think we're stupid, Rachel?" My chest tightened. The screenshots, the recordings, everything, gone. I felt the blood drain from my face. My dad sneered. We deleted everything. You can't outsmart us. They thought they had won. They thought I was beaten. But what they didn't know, I had already backed up the evidence to a cloud account the night before. Every photo, every file safely stored where they couldn't touch it. So I let them think they destroyed me. I lowered my eyes, forced tears into my voice, and whispered, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. My mom's smirk widened. Good, because if you keep pushing us, you'll regret it. I went upstairs, shut my door, and collapsed on the bed. The blinking red light of the camera stared down at me like a warning, but this time I didn't feel powerless. Because I had a secret bigger than theirs. And I knew the day was coming when I'd stop hiding. The day was coming when I'd expose them all. For a while, I lived like a ghost in my own house. I nodded when spoken to, kept my head down, and acted like the obedient daughter they thought they'd fixed. But inside, I was sharpening my silence into a weapon. What I didn't realize was just how far they'd go to keep me under their control. The first blow came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. My guidance counselor pulled me aside after class, her expression tense. Rachel, she said softly. I just got word from 3 of the colleges you applied to. They said your applications were withdrawn. My stomach flipped. Withdrawn? I never, but then it hit me like a punch to the chest. My parents. They must have accessed my emails, logged into my accounts, and pulled every single application. My dreams of leaving, of escaping, were being erased. I rushed home, my chest burning, and stormed into the kitchen. My mom was stirring soup like it was any other day. I slammed my hands on the counter. Why would you do that? Those applications were my future. She didn't even look at me. You're not ready to leave home. College is a cesspool. We're protecting you. My dad finally turned from the TV, his voice sharp. We already saved you from embarrassment. You're not going to waste money chasing fantasies. You'll stay here. We'll decide when you're ready. It felt like the air had been sucked from the room. My whole future, stolen with a few clicks. But it didn't stop there. The next weekend, we had a family barbecue at my uncle's house. Everyone was gathered, plates full of burgers and potato salad, kids running around the yard, and then I overheard it, my aunt whispering to my cousin, poor Rachel, her parents say she's been unstable, needs constant supervision. Such a shame. My blood froze. I spun around, staring at them, but they quickly averted their eyes. It was true. My parents had been feeding the whole family lies, painting me as some fragile, unstable girl who couldn't be trusted with freedom. And it worked. People looked at me differently. Pitying eyes, condescending smiles. My own relatives, people I thought would defend me, were buying into their story. That night, I sat in my room, staring at the hidden camera's blinking light. The walls felt like they were closing in. My college dreams were gone, my reputation shredded, and even my extended family was turning against me. For the first time, I felt the crushing weight of defeat. What if they were right? What if I couldn't escape? Maybe it would be easier to just give in, let them mold me into the quiet daughter they wanted. At least then, the fight would be over. I sat there for hours, my chest heavy, tears burning down my cheeks. For the first time, I thought about surrender, about letting them win. But then, I remembered. The cloud backup. The evidence I'd saved. My counselor's concerned face. Lily's voice telling me, you're stronger than them, Rash. And slowly, a fire started flickering inside me again. Yes, they had stolen my applications. Yes, they had poisoned my family against me, but they hadn't destroyed me. Not yet. Because somewhere deep inside, I knew the story wasn't over. The breaking point wasn't my ending, it was the storm before my explosion. And I promised myself right then, if they wanted to paint me as unstable, fine. I'd show them what unstable looked like when I tore their empire of lies apart, piece by piece in front of everyone. The night before my 18th birthday, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I knew tomorrow was going to change everything. Either I would finally take control of my life, or I would drown in theirs forever. I had planned it carefully. I wasn't going to scream or beg anymore. I wasn't going to run away in the middle of the night. No, this time I was going to expose them on their own stage, in front of the very people they'd been lying to. My parents loved appearances. They thrived on family gatherings, church socials, and neighborhood barbecues, where they could perform the role of model parents. That's why when they announced a big birthday dinner for me at our church hall, complete with relatives, family friends, and community members, I knew it was my moment. I walked into the hall the next day wearing the dress they had picked out, hair braided the way they liked. To anyone watching, I was still the perfect puppet, but tucked in my purse was my friend Lily's old phone, connected to the projector my uncle used for church slides. On it was every screenshot, every recording, every shred of evidence I had gathered over the past year. The smell of fried chicken and coleslaw filled the room. People laughed, clinked glasses, and asked me about my future plans. My parents smiled proudly, lying through their teeth. Rachel's staying close to home. Family first, you know how it is. And then it happened. My dad tapped his glass with a fork. Let's all say a few words for our daughter, he announced, pulling me to the front of the room. My stomach twisted, but I forced a smile. She's been through a lot, but we've kept her on the right path. Haven't we, sweetheart? That was it, the final straw. I reached into my bag and connected Lily's phone to the projector. The screen behind me lit up, and within seconds, the room fell into a dead, suffocating silence. First, I showed the hidden camera footage. My own bedroom, my dad adjusting the lens, my mom whispering, "She won't dare step out of line now." Gasps erupted around the room. My aunt covered her mouth. Then I scrolled through the texts. Paragraphs of my mom berating me for wanting friends, calling me ungrateful and unstable. My dad's threats, "Try to leave and we'll make sure nobody believes you." I turned to face the crowd, my voice steady, despite the shaking in my hands. "They told you I was unstable. They told you I was dramatic. But here's the truth. They've been controlling every single part of my life. My phone, my room, even my future." Murmurs filled the hall, people shifting uncomfortably. My parents leapt from their chairs, panic etched across their faces. "Rachel, stop this nonsense right now," my mother hissed, her face red with rage. My father's voice thundered, "Turn that off before you embarrass this family." But I wasn't finished. "Embarrass the family?" I laughed bitterly. "You embarrassed yourselves." Then I dropped the final twist. "Oh, and by the way, my counselor already has all this evidence. Child Protective Services has been contacted. You can't erase this anymore." The hall exploded into whispers. My grandmother stood up, glaring at my parents. "Is this true? You spied on your own daughter?" My uncle muttered. No wonder she wanted out. For once the room wasn't looking at me with pity. They were staring at my parents with horror. My mom tried to lunge for the projector, but Lily's dad, who had been suspicious for months, stepped in front of her. "Enough. Let her speak." And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. My voice didn't shake, my knees didn't buckle. I looked straight at them, those people who thought they had stripped me of every ounce of power, and I said, "You taught me silence. You taught me fear. But today, I'm teaching you that I am done being your prisoner." My parents stood frozen, faces pale as the weight of their lies came crashing down around them. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just my climax, it was theirs. The empire of control they'd built was crumbling, right there in front of everyone. The hall was still buzzing when I finally walked outside, the cool night air hitting my skin like freedom itself. My heart was hammering, not out of fear this time, but out of adrenaline, the kind you feel after jumping off a cliff and realizing you survived the fall. Behind me, voices rose in chaotic waves, relatives arguing, friends whispering, my parents shouting things they couldn't take back. But the strangest part? For once, it wasn't my problem. They had lost control and the evidence wasn't going away. That night, I didn't go home with them. My aunt, my mom's own sister, grabbed my hand and said, "You're coming with me." I half expected my parents to drag me back, to scream that I was theirs to control, but they just stood there, frozen, knowing everyone had seen what they'd done. Their power was gone. The next weeks were a blur. CPS got involved. The hidden cameras, the monitoring apps, the psychological abuse. It was all documented. My parents denied everything. Of course, they played the same old card. She's exaggerating. She's dramatic. But this time, nobody bought it. The proof was undeniable. Their masks had cracked in front of too many people. Living with my aunt wasn't perfect, but it was freedom. I could close my bedroom door without paranoia. I could text my friends without wondering who was watching. The first night, I lay in bed staring at my phone, waiting for it to buzz with controlling messages. But it never did. And that silence was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. But freedom wasn't just about leaving. It was about reclaiming myself. I applied to colleges again. This time with my aunt's help. I bought a cheap notebook and started journaling. Not the kind my mom would read and mock, but one I kept locked in a box under my bed. Every entry was a reminder. These words are mine. Of course, it wasn't all clean victory. My parents tried to smear me to anyone who'd listen. They told the community I was rebellious, corrupted by friends, even brainwashed by social workers. But deep down, I realized it didn't matter anymore. Their words couldn't cage me. I wasn't their puppet. The real twist came months later. I got a letter from my mom. In shaky handwriting, she begged me to come home. "We just wanted to protect you," she wrote. "We did it out of love." For a second, my heart ached. Part of me wanted to believe her. But then I remembered the hidden cameras, the lies, the way she called me unstable in front of relatives. That wasn't love. It was control dressed in love's disguise. So I wrote back one line. "I love you, but I won't let you own me." Years later, telling this story still makes my chest tighten, but not from fear, from pride, because the worst way my parents tried to control me was by convincing me I was powerless. And the greatest rebellion wasn't just exposing them, it was realizing they were wrong. If you're listening to this, wondering if you're too trapped, too scared, too silenced, I want you to know something: you're not. Secrets rot in silence. But truth sets you free. So, what's the worst way my parents tried to control me? By making me believe my life belonged to them, but in the end, I took it back. And that was the best decision I ever made.